We should have an inquiry into the COVID footballers. Like, where have they gone? And Reece James is one of them. Something from COVID you want to forget. He's like Uber Eats and banging for the NHS.
I don't start body popping.
Your Martin Keown wouldn't be celebrating a tackle. He'd be looking sad and somber and like, this is just my life.
I do like the idea of Donnarumma having to have a full medical assessment, have a PSA test, a stool sample.
Isak's got off the mark in the Premier League. I think his Barron run has been overstated.
I read this thing about Ronay the other day that he, dessert, he had another serving of plain chicken.
Here's the match of the day arrow to show where Vicario could have put the ball out for a throw against Fulham. The funniest use of the graphic ever.
The commentator said King puts it on a plate for Wilson.
Yes, yeah.
In the first half, it did look like Ange had returned the way they were defending it.
But he is 14 foot tall and 34 years old. He cannot be chasing these tiny little, extremely quick, jinky wingers around. It's beneath his dignity.
Zip, zip.
I'm glad the voting for the FSA Awards has already closed.
If you put the words Ivan Toney through like a Slavic Portuguese translator app, you would get the words Igor Tiago, the most evil oligarch that can be found. Is there anyone who's involved in arms and oil?
Let's begin at Stamford Bridge then. Chelsea 1, Arsenal 1. Not a bad game, Barry, not a classic, just a bit hectic. Did I build it up too much on Thursday and on Monday and on Tuesday or whenever it was?
I would say it was quite a bad game, and it certainly didn't live up to the billing you were giving it on Thursday and Wednesday. I think if it hadn't been Chelsea-Arsenal, it would very much have been last on Match of the Day, even worse than Villa-Wolves, with apologies to Dan. It was scrappy, it was bad-tempered, and entertaining for being bad-tempered. I like a bad-tempered game, but I certainly wouldn't say it was a good game of football. And I think a draw was probably fair. Some Arsenal fans will see it as 2 points drop because they played against 10 men for so long. But seeing as they did go a goal behind and managed to turn it around, and it was a draw against the team that seemed most likely to be their biggest title rivals, it's a good point, I think, for both teams.
Would you go along with that, Barney? Or do you think you sort of wonder, a point at Chelsea is not bad, but since they played 10 men for so long, that is this an opportunity lost for Arsenal in a way?
No, I mean, I actually don't agree with any of that. I think it was a good game. I think it was really, it's what you want in a league where you want it to feel as tight as this. I mean, Chelsea are really, I was very sceptical about the Chelsea project for ages. But they're a really good, clever team. And Maresca's so good at these one-off occasions. Manchester City now have to play Chelsea twice in the remainder of the season. So obviously you're going to have a major effect either as chief challengers or kind of kingmakers in the league. And I thought it was a really good point for Arsenal. I don't think having a player sent off is such a big deal these days. The players are so fit and so good at keeping the ball mainly. You don't then fall back and spend 80 minutes defending. They train for it. In many ways, it's just another game state, and sometimes it puts more pressure on the opponent because, we now have to do something we weren't planning for. So I don't think it made a massive difference in that sense. It was definitely a red card. And I really love the intensity of this game. I think I saw 5 points clear at the top. They've just had a really good week. They were missing both their best defenders, and if we assume Gyökeres wasn't quite fit to start, both their best attackers as well. Like, don't forget, I think Havertz would probably be starting in this team if he was fit. So I think even though, yes, you could have won, they will see it as a really good. Maybe it's just a good league where you have games like this where you're not going to win all the time, and you have to. When Man United, for example, won the treble, that was more of a standard league type season. They lost loads of games, even towards the end. It was just a question of staying ahead of other people. And it feels like this. I think the league's really strong this year. I think teams have kind of rebounded back a bit. It's one of the reasons it's interesting to see a champion team in such, obvious state of decline, although they won And I think it was a good game and a good point, and I kind of enjoyed it. It felt visceral. I thought Reece James played brilliantly. People forget how good he is, and I also be glad to have got out of it.
He's like cornflake. He's the Kellogg's cornflakes of the Premier League, Dan. People have forgotten how good Reece James is. He was against Rice as well, against that midfield. He was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's having a great season so far. I think because of the injury problems, and you've been away from the England squad because of said injury problems, you actually had for a period forgotten how good he is, and the fact that he's playing in midfield for a top club like Chelsea at the moment is testament to his ability, how good he is on the ball, what an intelligent and clever footballer he is. He's the leader as well. He's the captain. I think he actually kind of came through. I think he went on loan to Wigan, and I think he played midfield for a season for them in the EFL. So he's played there in his career. But to be playing at that level for Chelsea, I actually, when Caicedo's not getting sent off, I quite like that midfield three. I think Reece James and Caicedo together gives Enzo the licence to go forward a little bit, and he's been in dangerous form this season. Always looks like he might pop up with a goal. So, yeah, credit to Chelsea. I mean, they are very well versed at playing with 10 men at the moment. So, from
Sure.
an Arsenal
Yeah.
perspective, they're probably the hardest team to play against with 10 men because they're the most experienced of playing with a man down, because it's happened to them so much recently. I'm with Barney. I thought it was it wasn't a great game, but I thought it was an interesting game. And Chelsea, Jonathan Wilson called them to be, title favourites at the start of the season. They're not title favourites, but they're within touching distance, and there's no reason why they can't keep the pace and keep the challenge up.
I think there's certain players who were really good in the COVID period, like Mason Mount. Like people forget how good Mason Mount was. He scored yesterday. He was amazing. He was in sort of Ballon d'Or rankings and played really well, set up the winner in the but he's like something from COVID you want to forget. He's like Uber Eats and banging for the NHS. Like he's just some guy who like, what happened there? Don't know, don't remember. It's all a bit of a blur. We should have an inquiry into the COVID footballers. Like, where have they gone? And Reece James was one of them. People who were good then when there was no crowd and you could hear them shouting.
Yeah. All my entire COVID was watching Paul Mullin score like 3 for Cambridge every week as we got promoted. And he wasn't forgotten because he then ended up in Deadpool. And I maintain that he would still be in Deadpool if he'd stayed at Cambridge and not gone down 2 divisions to Wrexham. But I may be wrong about that. But Barry as well, but like Chelsea defensively, like Arsenal set pieces looked a bit flat in this, and they sort of got those bits that you sort of don't study that much, but actually they defended those really well as well.
Yeah, they did, and I guess they were probably helped by the fact that Saliba and Gabriel were both absent. They did seem to have this plan where it was pointed out on Match of the Day. I didn't spot it myself until someone else pointed out that whenever Arsenal had a corner, João Pedro just stood in the box, not looking at the corner taker, not looking at the ball, just waiting to see who's going to make a run and to block that run. That seems quite a clever plan, quite a simple plan, but not one that anyone seems to have thought of before. I feel I'm going to get maligned now for saying I thought this was a bad game, uh, because Barney couldn't disagree with me more.
Yeah, I knew that you would
as is
strike back
customary.
on this point. Yes, yes.
I thought it was an absorbing spectacle. It was reasonably interesting because of the two teams involved and their positions in the league, but I still maintain it was not a good game of football. And I know we place far too much credence on what comes first, the match of the day. It wasn't first in the match of the day, although the sad death of Billy Bonds may have had an influence in that factor or in that decision.
Yeah. Do I sound, Barney, like a rugby fan trying to say why football is shit by
Yes,
saying,
yeah.
I'm so fed, thank you, I'm so fed, I haven't asked the question yet, I'm so
Well, I just
fed up
thought,
of,
yeah, you do.
of players writhing in pain. Like, okay, Marino, maybe he did get caught, but Caicedo, when he two-footed Marino, Chalobah, okay, gets an elbow in the face, Sanchez at the end. I'm not saying they're not hurt, but anyone who's been hurt, you stay still, and I can't, like this sort of mad sort of like writhing, like you've sort of been shot in a Oliver Stone movie. You sort of think, just stay still.
You wouldn't do any of the things that footballers are doing if you weren't involved in a game or people weren't watching. Like you wouldn't throw a ball back onto a pitch after it's come off. You wouldn't kick a ball to your teammate. I mean, it's a performance, and being in pain is part of the performance. But yeah, Caicedo was clearly trying to deceive the referee into thinking it was just a clash, a coming together. Um, I think that I think it's a bit unfair on Chalobah. He really had been clanged in the face. Although in
Yeah,
my
but
experience,
if you're clanged in the face, you just hold your face and you just go, "Ow, that really hurt." Like I don't start body popping. Is what is the point
yeah,
I'm
they were
making.
clearly trying to get to level up the score. I mean, Arteta noted afterwards that their Chelsea players were sort of targeting Arsenal players who'd already been booked and seeking contact, and then sort of, oh my god, I'm in agony. You know, and that's, I guess, a tactic, and it's a professional game, but it's an increasingly performative sport, isn't it? Because the players are under this, the way you observe something changes the way it behaves. And we now observe it in tiny little microscopic close up slices. And the players know that every single bit is going to be clipped. So Chalobah's pointing at his cheekbone, saying, "Look at this," because he knows the world will zoom in on that. He's saying to the director, "Look at." He's not talking to the other player. He's talking to the TV director. You have a player to director. You know, I have a bump on my. That's really new, and it. I mean, lots of things have changed because of this principle of being observed. For example, goalkeepers and defenders celebrating tackles, which is something that I really enjoy. Did you see that? Um, Dean Henderson celebrated a save with the
Yes,
crowd.
yes.
I've noticed defenders doing this, and there's like 5 or 6 minutes of the game still to go, and they're celebrating because if I do that, it means the game's nearly over, and it means that we're winning. And even really kind of minor interventions, they're turning around and really this sort of cosplaying defence, because a lot of these people aren't really, you know, they're sort of modern defenders who your Martin Keown wouldn't be celebrating a tackle. He'd be looking sad and somber and like, this is just my life. I'm tied together with a rope on the training pitch by George Graham because I'm essentially a defensive beaten down man. But they're celebrating, and it's very confusing because I'm confused about what the game state is. I'm confused about what does that mean? Why is this man celebrating? But I think that the same with injury. So I'm going on about this a bit, but the
That's
same
okay.
with injury. It's because the sport has become such a microscopic performance.
Dan, if I can drag you back to the game just before we move on, as to not to whether it was good or bad or not, but any other strong thoughts coming out of that, certainly in terms of how seriously you're taking Chelsea.
I still think it would be a stretch for them to win the league, but there's no doubt that they're in the conversation. I thought it was a decent point for Arsenal as well. I know, as Barney said, they're playing against 10 men, but I agree with Barney that it's harder to play against 10 men than people perhaps think. They could have won it at the end if Timber hadn't have cleared the ball away from Gyökeres. Unbelievable clearance, probably the best bit of defending that there was all day, and there was quite a lot of defending in the game. But I think Arsenal have stumbled a little bit away from home recently, but they're still doing enough to set the pace, and I still expect them to win the league.
Yeah, and actually Barry, we've spoken in previous seasons about Arteta being too emotional. He seems very measured at the moment. Like, when I hear him, I feel like, oh, they've got this.
I can't say I've noticed particularly. But yeah, he seemed in quite good mood yesterday. I thought he might be a bit chippy over the fact that Chelsea were trying to get his players sent off. They seemed to target Mosquera in particular, and the number of yellows that Arsenal players got compared to Chelsea. But no, he seemed quite relaxed about the result and the game itself. So I suppose, yeah, an Arteta of old might have been fuming and very angry about that.
Do you think that's the difference when you're setting the pace rather than being the chaser, so to speak? Like, you can afford to be a bit more measured and a bit more relaxed when you're actually the team at the top, whereas you tend to probably be a bit more antsy when you're the chaser and you need things to go your way because you're trying to claw back a points difference.
Yeah, I think he knows his team is incredibly efficient this year, strong. He knows that if they just keep doing what they're doing, it's going to be incredibly hard for them to lose enough games not to finish very, very close. He's really happy with what he's got. Do you know who I feel sorry for in all this is Callum Chambers? Because
Ah,
whenever Arsenal have a defensive injury now, they're like, well, you look at how strong the squad is. You know, a few years back, it was Callum Chambers coming in, and his name is like hoist the whole time as an example of bad.
Does Rob Holding does it Rob Holding and Callum Chambers? Is it mainly Chambers?
Yeah, Rob
gets it?
Holding too.
Is
But
it?
I mean, Callum Chambers, I mentioned him because he was a sub for Cardiff in the Championship against Mansfield. And actually, my son was at the game and he sent me a message saying, we need to study the downfall of Callum Chambers. What's happened here? And I think he's not helped by Arsenal's squad depth, the narrative. He's in the media. He's mentioned far more than he should be. We're just like a good footballer who tried his best to be good for Arsenal, didn't quite work out. And he's now all that is bad or was bad.
Yeah. Mentioned more than Premier League players who are actually playing games, but yeah, down in League One now. I don't know how they got on. I should check. Let's talk about Man City while we're doing the top of the table. They beat Leeds 3-2. A vital moment for them in injury time, Barry, to keep pace. Great finish from Foden. Perhaps an even better jump out the way from Josep Guardiola. This is why people jump on boxes for that moment.
Yeah, this game looked to be over very early when City went 2-0 up. Guardiola scored, Foden put them ahead. Guardiola scored from a mistake at a corner from Perry, who came to punch the ball and didn't connect with it properly. And Daniel Farke made some changes at half time. And I think he just decided, look, we might as well lose 5-0 as 2-0. Let's have a go. And it really worked. The second half, it was just a total transformation from Leeds. I think Man City thought the game was over by half time. They just were, we'll see this out, no problem. And Leeds got it back to 2-2. And then Leeds thought, right, we'll take the point, and they sat back. I think if Leeds had kept going, they might have won this game, but they didn't. And when the board went up with 10 minutes, it's classic. You fear for Leeds, you really do. And City duly scored, courtesy of an excellent shot by Foden, and as you say, Guardiola spotting what he was about to do and making sure to jump out of the way. I think the main talking point from this game was when Leeds were on top in the second half, and they were on top, very much so. Ruben Diaz instructed Gianluigi Donnarumma to start feeling his hamstring and go down injured. This allowed Pep to have a tactical timeout with his players, and that's when they turned the game around back in their favour. So it's not against the rules. It is probably very much against the spirit of fair play, but this is the Premier League, and fair play isn't something that too many people are concerned about. So Pep had a laugh about it yesterday or after the game. Daniel Farke wasn't particularly happy, but these things happen, I guess. I'm not sure what you can do to stop it happening.
Well, DRT says if things start going wrong in the pod and Barry needs a timeout, maybe Barney can do a Donnarumma and fake an injury, he says. And Daniel Farke was very upset about it. It's not the elephant in the room. Everyone knows why he went down. Why he went down, it was obvious. It is within the rules. It's smart. If I like it, if it's within a sense of fair play, if it should be like this, I will keep it to myself. It's up to the authorities to find a solution. And the solution has been mentioned, Barney, is you have to take a player off. Like you have to pick, your sort of Callum Chambers, I guess, to say you have to go off because the keeper's injured.
Yeah, I mean, either that or you could insist that if the goalkeeper is found not to be injured, you must forcefully injure him. He must be injured, maybe using a sort of cattle prod. Now, I've seen this happen 3 times in games this season. I've seen a manager call his goalkeeper across while his team has an attacking corner, explain, and the goalkeeper's still going, what you want? What? Okay. And then on 40 minutes, the goalkeeper just goes down holding his hamstring, and the coaching staff are out calling everyone over. It's a pre-planned thing. It happens all the time. And it's really annoying. It shouldn't happen. It's someone pretending the goalkeeper should be booked. I mean, but how do you establish someone isn't injured? That's impossible, isn't it? You can't prove a negative. But
so Donnarumma has to be taken to hospital, given an MRI,
a full medical.
You have
blood
to strain
pressure.
his hamstring, like overextend his leg. I can see a 4th, 5th, and 6th official bending his leg back on the pitch until he screams. And then it's okay, fine. You wave on the manager, the players, and if you're legitimately. But I think what we were saying is you then have to take an outfield player off in the way because goalkeepers don't come off because it would be weird to restart the game with nobody in the goal. So that's why they always have the goalkeeper feigning
I
injury.
mean, sometimes Spurs just don't have the keeper in the goal anyway, just during the match. But we'll get to that. No, I do like the idea of Donnarumma having to have a full medical assessment. Because men don't talk about these things enough. Have a PSA test, a stool sample, all those things, do his blood pressure, and then 3 days later he gets texted the results, and then the game can carry on. It is worth, Dan, whenever Phil Foden does something good, it's worth having that. Where is he on the plane? Is he on the plane? Is he off the plane? Is he near the plane? How many number 10s have to be injured before? Because he's playing so much better than last year, isn't he?
Yeah, a real off season last time round after the season of his life, the season before. Foden's just one of those players that when he is on song, I absolutely love watching him. He's one of my favourite players in the league. He's so unique. There's certainly not any English players that play the game in the same way as him. And he's had a difficult 12 months, lots of questions asked about him, but he's answering them with aplomb so far this season, turned into a really, really important player for Manchester City. But again, I love it when he drifts into those central areas. He must be so hard for defenders to pick up. And, on a day when Haaland has not really done the business, it's Foden that's come up trumps and shown how important he is for Manchester City, and, have a great season so far. That was a good game. That was a good game. I thought Manchester City against
Yes.
Leeds. Daniel Farke, his substitutions have been questioned, but actually taking the pace off at half time and making the substitutions he made that a really entertaining and an interesting second half, and they were unlucky not to take something.
Can I just add one thing on that game? The thing at the end where we're now going to regularly have 10 minutes of stoppage time. For some reason, that thing where they hold up the board and the crowd goes, yeah, it's really affected how the game goes when these trying to see out a backs to the wall point at a nominally more powerful team. It happened with Bayern Munich as well this weekend. They were at 1-1. The board went up and it's like, look, there's massive time left. And they also scored twice, I think, in stoppage time, almost immediately as well, because there's this sudden emotional sapping of these players who are tired and have been fighting. And oh my God, we've got to play for 10 minutes more. That's a lifetime. And City scored almost immediately, not to take anything away. It was a brilliant goal and Foden is brilliant. But that rule quite clearly favours stronger teams who have, well, everyone has 5 subs, but your 5 subs are going to be better when you're Man City. It's clearly designed to give an advantage to larger clubs, bigger clubs who, if you just keep playing, we will win in the end. And I think it's a bit of a shame. But then I don't support a team like that, so I'd probably disagree if I did.
It's like those terrible SAS shows where you run a marathon, the sickener, and then you get to the truck, and just as you get to the truck, it drives away, and they say, "Now do another marathon." And the poor
But if you
Leeds
could bring
players are
on
going,
Phil Foden to do that marathon for you, whereas you can't do that. You're exhausted.
Willie Nonto's like, I can't do another. I just couldn't do another one. So Liverpool stopped the rot. They deserved this one, Barry. And I suppose everything came right for Slot. Isak scored. He dropped Salah and it worked.
I thought West Ham might do better in this game, to be honest. I thought with Liverpool in their current state of being very much on the ropes and West Ham being a bit resurgent, I thought they might beat Liverpool here, but they provided very little in the way of strong opposition. Made all the more easy by Lucas Paqueta's extraordinary sending off for 2 yellow cards in quick succession for dissent. And it was remarkable that it was quite obvious it was going to happen. And Jared Bowen and is it Matthias Fernandez were standing nearby, but didn't do anything to try and shut him up or usher him away from the referee. And it was actually Allison who tried to manhandle him away. They're obviously both Brazilian. They play together for Brazil. Allison was the only one who tried to stop him talking his way off the pitch, in vain as it happened. And then Paqueta published this howl, and perhaps a little justified howl of self-pity on social media afterwards, complaining about the lack of support he got from the FA when he had those betting charges hanging over him. But I'm not sure that is justification for the stupid sending off that cost his team. it was a pretty straightforward win for Liverpool. Although Jared Bowen missed a reasonably good chance to equalise when the West Ham were only 1-0 down, and obviously Alexander Isak scoring is good for him and good for Liverpool.
And that Bowen chance was very much, it wasn't an easy chance, but it was a Jared Bowen chance, wasn't it? It was like you've seen him score that goal. Yeah, Paqueta said afterwards, it's ridiculous to have your life and career affected for 2 years without any psychological support from the Federation. Perhaps this ridiculous behaviour, which is a quote back to what the commentary said, is just a reflection of everything I've had to endure, and it seems have to continue enduring. I'm sorry if I'm not perfect. I mean, I guess the thing is, Barney, Darren England can't take into account the last 2 years of Lucas Paqueta's life. And I felt like, refs can be quite quick to book players, but actually I thought he sort of tried not to, and then just eventually it was the right decision, probably. I don't know who should be giving Paqueta the support there. Is he talking about the FA or the PFA or,
the Federation?
the Federation?
I mean, I don't know what
the Brazilian FA or his. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he obviously feels he's still very raw about it. I mean, it's a weird one because you're accused of and entirely an innocent man, Lucas Paqueta, but you are also accused of doing weird things in games to affect, and this just looks so strange. It's one of those things like you're booked twice for the same. When does something stop happening? When does an emotion stop? Because it's really infuriating to be booked for being infuriated. We've all had those kind of weird arguments where you're like, I'm not angry. I can't stop being angry with this person who's banged my car or whatever, or cut in front of me in the supermarket line. And of course I'm angry because now you're telling me I'm angry. But he then seemed to be sort of fine once he'd been sent off, as though he needed that resolution. It's a difficult one. Obviously didn't help his team. I thought the most interesting thing about this game, maybe for Liverpool fans or for neutrals like me, I'm a big Wirtz guy. I just really like him. It's slightly to do with just how good he looks in the flesh, how well he moves. I think it's deceptive. Sometimes you think he's played better than he has, just because the little things he does with the ball are so nice. But he had a good game, and for Liverpool, he's clearly not the problem. He's the best player at the club, and he's young, and he's really committed to making it work. And so anything where he has a good game, is involved in making a goal with a really nice little pass, is good for them, because he's clearly the future. And I think there was quite a good model here for Arne Slot, who rested his superstar and saw his other superstar, the younger superstar, have his probably his best game for them so far.
Yeah, it feels premature to say this is what Liverpool look like without Salah, Dan. But like, he's gone away to AFCON before, he will do this time. And it's, as Slot said afterwards, like, whoever I don't pick, it's a big call. If I don't pick Isak, you ask me about that. If I don't pick, Ekitike when he's playing well, etc. But it is clearly a big call not to play Salah, and it kind of worked with sort of Szoboszlai ostensibly in that role, but drifting in.
Yeah, it was a more interchangeable system, wasn't it? Wirtz was buzzing around Szoboszlai, kind of a little bit of a free roll from the right-hand side. He's right, whoever he doesn't pick, there's going to be questions asked. Salah at the moment, he's not on form. He's struggling. He's nowhere near the levels that he's been previously, and obviously he's been a legend of the Premier League. He'll almost get away with it, Slot, in terms, because the way he spoke about it, and he'll play in the midweek round of games. I would have thought, he mentioned the schedule. He listed how many games they've got in the next week. He's not going to keep Salah out that team. I would have thought he'll come in and someone else will sit out the next game. But the system did just look a little bit more flexible. I thought Joe Gomez coming in at right back as well helped. I've been saying Liverpool should do that for weeks. He played the game actually in a different way than I expected. I thought he'd make them more solid, maybe tucking in and making a back three, but I thought he actually added a different dimension coming forward. I think Joe Gomez is actually a really good footballer. People forget that. He's probably the fourth or fifth person that Liverpool have tried in that role, but I thought he looked the most comfortable out of anyone that's played there this season. And then, they changed things around, and Isak's got off the mark in the Premier League. I believe this will probably be classed as an unpopular opinion, but I think his barren run has been overstated a little bit, because he's barely played 90 minutes. He's barely played consecutive games, and Liverpool as a team just haven't been functioning. But it'll do him good to get off the mark, and it was a smart finish reminiscent of the Isak of the last few years in the Premier League.
Yeah. Paolo says, have West Ham looked into the possibility they were only sold half a Krug? I think that's a bit harsh, because full Krug, actually they looked quite good when they went long to Fulham, which is how Liverpool have suffered. But anyway, they didn't play well. We should talk about Billy Bonds. You mentioned it, Barry. He's passed away at the age of 79. His family released a statement through the club. Dad loved West Ham United and its wonderful supporters with all his heart. Treasured every moment of his time at the club. We take comfort knowing that his legacy will live on forever. Jonathan Wilson wrote a piece about him. Said, for those of us whose football consciousness was formed in the early 80s, he seemed not only an eternal feature of West Ham, but the archetype of a certain sort of English player, as comfortable in midfield as at the back, uncompromising, but also good on the ball, forever rolling his sleeves up and pointing. And he said, where Trevor Brooking could have strolled through the Somme without dirting his shorts, Bond seemed forever caked in mud, socks rolled down, teeth and eyes glinting through a fug of sweat and beard. Barney, you saw him play.
I'm just really glad to hear Wilson referring to the Somme finally. We must always refer to the First World War. Yeah, I saw him play in the sort of mid to late 80s, towards the end of his career. And I remember him. He was a really striking figure. He was like he was one of these sort of hard men warrior kind of midfielders, but he was also really skillful. He moved really well. He had this kind of really imposing sort of physicality, as you'd expect, almost 800 games for one team, still playing at 41 in the top tier. So he's better than Ronaldo. I read this thing about Ronaldo the other day that he someone went for dinner with him and he for dessert, he had another serving of plain chicken. He has plain chicken breast for dessert. Now, Billy Bonds probably didn't have that, but he is a club legend of a kind that doesn't really happen anymore. Someone who just, like Wilson said, seems completely connected to the club. These sort of fixed points. He used to have players like this who were just really good, didn't leave, didn't necessarily have to play for England. West Ham had quite a lot of them. I mean, Alan Devonshire used to get the tube to the games, and you sort of still felt like a fixed point in the community. He's also a type of man that I remember there being a lot of. He's kind of from the place where he's from, I think Woolwich, and he was in Eltham for a while, southeast Londoner. There used to be a lot of blokes like that around. Like his hair nominally kind of long, pub rock sort of look, but also neat and sort of quite not exactly roguish, but also quite conservative and old school, clean cut. There used to be a lot of blokes like that around, sort of mischievous, but also total club servant, eternal kind of geezer bloke. And he's a very reassuring figure. You just liked him, you respected him. The fact that he played for so long, obviously, really. There's some pictures of him doing weights going around on the internet. He had an incredible physique, and was obviously, in that sense, a kind of perfect professional. And you could see the link with him. It's nice to see Potts playing for West Ham, son of whose father would have played with Billy Bonds, and fans really feel a connection to that. I wondered if this might be a good moment for West Ham to start a kind of scheme in his memory, where fans could possibly invest in the club, even acquire a kind of fan share by effectively loaning money to the club, buying into the club in his name, a kind of financial instrument. And I had an idea of what you could call these financial instruments that fans buy. You could call them Billy Gilts. Billy
Gilts. Really good. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, it's too soon, isn't it? Too soon for the Billy Bonds.
He made 799 appearances for West Ham. Only player to captain them to 2 FA Cup victories, 75 and 80. 21 years there. And managed them as well from 1990 to 1994. Our thoughts, of course, with his friends and family. To Tottenham, Spurs 1, Fulham 2. Fulham's first away win of the season. Hello, Dr. Tottenham. An amazing, Dan, opening to this game. Fulham 2-0 up after 6 minutes. And before the Spurs inquest, it is worth talking about how brilliant that Harry Wilson goal is, because he, as soon as he realises the opportunity, he sort of moves. He creates the space for himself, gets a perfect pass, and the finish is such a delight.
Yeah, it's helped by Udogie falling over slightly. I mean, he had a disastrous first 8 minutes, didn't he, Destiny Udogie? But Harry Wilson strikes me as a player who maybe had a difficult start to his career. And I think lots of players who come through the bigger academies and have a taste of it and then have to move down, they almost struggle to find themselves. I think he must be 28, 29 now, Harry Wilson. He's turned into a really, really good wide player in the Premier League. Lots of goals, obviously done it on the international stage for Wales as well. But I think players that come through the academy often take longer to find themselves, that come through those big academies. And Now I just feel he's a player that's fully comfortable with himself. He knows what he is. He's full of confidence. He's not trying to prove anything. And that goal kind of just sums him up as a player for me. And Fulham started that game like a house on fire. And really, it could have been more at half time.
Oh, yeah. Mike says on that goal, is the match of the day arrow to show where Vicario could have put the ball out for a throw against Fulham? The funniest use of the graphic ever. Yeah, I mean, it was not fun from a Spurs perspective.
I think the arrow might have been better pointing at Pedro Porro or Kevin Danso, who neither of whom saw fit to see this entirely vacated goal behind them and get back to stand on the line and try and block any shot that might come in. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I think it didn't even cross their mind that Harry Wilson would try and score from there. The commentator said King puts it on a plate for Wilson.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Wilson's. He passed it to his feet, but he made it sound like Wilson couldn't possibly miss this sitter into a gaping goal from the touchline. It was a brilliant finish. I think the brilliance of the finish has been somewhat overshadowed by the slapstick nature of what went before it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, look, 3 times they've won at home in the league in 2025, Barney. So, and Tottenham, as Mark Langdon said the other day, they spend so much money. So they're booing, and they booed Vicario after that moment. And Thomas Frank afterwards said, it's okay they're frustrated because we haven't won a game at home for a long time. We all badly want to win. I'm fine with them booing after the game. During the game, I hope it was one incident and it never happens again. And he said that they can't be... I agree with him, and he said they can't be true Tottenham fans that do that. Fair enough, booing after the game, no problem. But if you've only been at the club for as long as Thomas Frank has, and it's not going well, I would just avoid criticising the fans, even if he's right.
Well, he has been a football manager for quite a long time. And I think at any level, booing your own goalkeeper during a game is not very helpful, is it? He's made a mistake. He's not deliberately done that. But I agree that the relationship is not good there. Thomas Frank's a good manager, but it just the way he plays is very, here is a lump of football. It's kind of very technocratic. It's not necessarily. It really worked. Brentford, you got these amazing moments through the structure that he imposed, but it did take a while for it to work there as well. And I just feel like it's one of those things that they've just had a look at him, quite a lot of Spurs fans, and said, no, that's not for us, which I think is a shame, but I do understand it as well. What I don't understand about Tottenham is, it's like, what do you want to happen? Like, they've got this amazing stadium. That's a really good thing, and it will really benefit the club. Although there are obviously commercial pressures around that. But Tottenham are going to win the league. Thomas Frank's not going to create a beautiful spectacle in the way that club sees itself. I just think everyone there should be thinking, this is great. I can just have a breath here and enjoy this. And I think it was a weird appointment, because that's not where everyone is in their life. It's like Tottenham are kind of close to the fans just want a bit of fun, really, and that's really not happening. And maybe you're hardwired into wanting managers to go and wanting more, and they're not even going to finish. It's very hard to finish in the top 4 this year, even the top 5, because there are some good teams there. It just feels like there needs to be a narrative and something to talk about there, and that is going to be the ill-fitting nature of Frank and his football.
Yeah, and it isn't fun, Dan. I mean, look, they had an XG just before half time of 0.01. At recent games, they've been at 0.03 and 0.02. As producer Joel says, they're on a crusade to push XG to places it's never been before, like an art installation. Like, I agree with Barney. I think he is a good manager, and like, it's mad to talk of him going, but already, the noise is there.
Yeah, it feels like the masses have decided they don't like him. They don't want him. This isn't going to be a good fit for Tottenham. What I would say is this is largely a squad that finished 17th last year and played some god-awful football last year, although I will say in the first half, it did look like Ange had returned the way they were defending it. It did feel like Postecoglou had gone back in and nobody had informed me about it. But in some ways, it was never going to be turned overnight. I think the fact they won the Europa League and are actually playing Champions League football has maybe skewed Tottenham fans' own perspective on their club because they're playing in the elite competition. It maybe makes them feel that they should be better than they are, but that they finished 17th, and it feels a little bit delusional at the moment to think that it wasn't going to be hard. I think because Thomas Frank's losing his home games and the bulk of their points have been picked up away. If it was the other way around, they'd maybe be a little bit more forgiving. I guess Frank's maybe paying for almost the price of football at the moment, that people are paying a lot of money to go to Tottenham every single week in that lovely new stadium, and they expect better. But I think it was always going to be tough. He was never going to be able to turn around what happened last season overnight.
Yeah, he's missing a lot of creativity. Ange acolytes will say Ange quite often had no Romero or Van der Ven, and sort of he didn't have Romero on the Saturday, but he's had sort of a fit defence, and they were sort of good at the start of the season, but now they're shipping a lot of goals. Anyway, terrible news for Spurs. They get to Newcastle on Tuesday, where they're often 8-0 down after 5 minutes. So absolutely terrifying that. Newcastle won 4-1 at Everton. Newcastle fans saying, how bad must you be? We're winning away. Their first away win of the season. Their first in 7 months. I was fed up of it, says Eddie Howe. That's why I'm so pleased the players gave me the opportunity to come here and not talk about it as much. And there may be more important things, Barry, but another glorious goal from the Voltemada vault of beautiful goals. A 0 miles an hour dink. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it was a lovely finish. Everton got away with Idrissa Gueye getting sent off against Manchester United, but they really missed him here because Timo Iroegbunam came in and had an absolute shocker. And he allowed Anthony Elanga to beat him far too easily down the right. Elanga plays the ball inside for Voltemada, who just lifts just this beautifully delicate lift over the oncoming Pickford's head. Really lovely finish, but Everton were really bad in the first half here, like shockingly bad. So Newcastle brought in Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento. Dan Burn was back in his rightful place at the heart of defence, and a much-needed away win for Newcastle. And Everton really did miss Gueye in this game, I think.
Yeah, and Ramsdale, Pope was injured, but Ramsdale came in. We were talking about that last week, about whether he might come in anyway. And actually, Barney, it's true. Livramento and Hall make such a difference at fullback.
Yeah, the uplift from having those two fullbacks one week and Dan Burn playing fullback another week. And Dan Burn, a very honest player, but he is 14 foot tall and 34 years old. He cannot be chasing these tiny little, extremely quick, jinky wingers around. It's not fair. It's beneath his dignity. But I think Livramento is such a good player. He's such a good fullback on both sides, and it's actually really important for England that he's back, because England do like the. O'Reilly is good. He's a really good player. Don't know if, and no one knows if he's ready to be a defender at an international tournament yet. He doesn't. I think Livramento is a brilliant fullback. Possibly frees up Reece James to play in midfield if Tuchel wanted to do that, or to play in the centre, because I think Reece James is one of England's best players, and Livramento is a brilliant fullback. Really, one of those fullbacks where they go into strange positions, they move inside, and it always feels like a problem for the other team, not for them, because they're just so confident and so good on the ball and so mobile that there's never a sense, there might be space behind this guy. It's always the other way, like, oh dear, this isn't overlaid wherever this player is, because he's so good on the ball. So I'm really glad to see him back and fit, and I hope he can stay fit.
Palace 1, Man United 2. What did you make of this one, Dan?
Yeah, at half-time, didn't see Manchester United come back on the cards at all. They've got the bulk of their attacking talent that they bought in the summer missing. Selhurst Park is a really, really difficult place to go. It's an even more difficult place to go when you're 1-0 down. And for them to come back, I think that they deserve huge credit. 2 unusual goals, but 2 very, very well taken goals in a weekend when actually there was lots of interesting things happening. There was lots of good goals, but the Xerxes one in particular was one of the strangest goals I think I've ever seen, and first goal for a year as well for him. So it's a credit to him. It's a great finish. I think Dean Henderson might be a little bit disappointed, but it's still a great finish. And Yeah, I thought Manchester United were, they obviously had that period where they won a few games in a row, and then it had been a few games without winning. That's a huge result at Selhurst Park because Crystal Palace's home record is phenomenal.
Everyone, Barry, made a point of how tired Palace were in the second half. Amrim said it. Glasner mentioned it. Obviously, Palace played on Thursday, lost in Strasbourg in the Conference League. And Man United have no European football, which, should help them. And Oliver Glasner basically had another pop, and it's not the first time, ownership. He said if you play European football for the first time in history, you should invest and not save. We're doing well. We're still in a good position in the league and in all 4 competitions. I think January is too late. We'll have played more than 50% of our games. And I don't know, is he saying I'm leaving, or is he keeping his options open? What's Glasner doing here? Or maybe he's just very honest, saying we haven't spent enough and we lost some players in the summer.
Well, I would imagine his options are always open. It's a matter of fact that Palace's record after Conference League games is poor. They've played 6 Sundays. After a Conference League game, they've lost 3, drawn 2, and only won 1. And that was early in the season.
He did one amazing zipping his mouth gesture. I don't know if you saw that, but it was incredibly... No,
Okay.
it was brilliant. He did like as though he was zipping up his mouth like someone on Sesame Street or the Muppets.
Or,
but he did it,
or Rainbow even.
Yeah, zippy.
Yeah, possibly Rainbow, Zippy. You can take your choice on that. But it was incredibly well done. It was as though he'd done it hundreds of times as well. He's someone who is used to doing that gesture. And it was a very aggressive interview as well. It was really like, I don't care what you say here or what you do. I'm going to say what I think. It was a manager looking after his legacy a bit, which I thought was, that's interesting. Feisty from Glasner.
I mean, there was a suggestion during the summer that he threatened to leave if they sold Gay to Liverpool, so Gay wasn't sold. I'll be honest, I wouldn't give United a huge amount of credit for this game. I think Palace threw it away. They missed loads of chances in the first half. They should have been more than 1-0 up at the break. And the winner they conceded was shocking, like not the free kick. The ball was rolled to Mount and he just fired it through the defensive wall. That was terrible defending. So, while United, they did win, I think Palace really gifted them the 3 points.
Teta's brilliant, but he has missed a lot of big chances so far this. And every time I've watched Palace, he could have had 3 or 4 goals, and he's putting the ball in the back of the net in general, but he's missing a host of big chances. I wouldn't know what his XG is, but I imagine it's higher than the amount he scored.
I like the idea. He did score a double hit penalty, our first ever. We see how exciting to see that. And the idea that, at Crystal Palace training ground, people go up to Oliver Glasner to ask him questions and he just goes, zip it, zip, zip. He's just constantly, he's so good at it.
Can I also just say,
Barney.
when people say Selhurst Park is a difficult place to go, it is a difficult place to go.
It is.
Because of that, there's an old advice, don't go to Crystal Palace, go to Selhurst. Crystal Palace is not where it is. I think that advice is out of date, and you should go to Crystal Palace because it's now on the Windrush line and you simply walk 15 minutes from there. So do go to Crystal Palace. Don't try and go to Selhurst. There's a lot more trains on the Windrush. I think that's the kind of advice that a football iconoclast, like a new thinker, like maybe a Thomas Frank, would just sweep that advice away. Do go to Crystal Palace. It becomes a much easier place to go to.
It's interesting, people haven't really viewed those overground lines well enough. I understand this because young Ian is obsessed with the tube. They've remodeled them, the Windrush and the Weaver line and the Mile Bay, to make them feel like tube stops and tube stations, and now everyone on them goes to them, because before they were like, I couldn't possibly get a train, got to get the tube. It's very interesting stuff.
I'm glad the voting for the FSA Awards has already closed.
Sunderland 3, Bournemouth 2. Perhaps harsh on Sunderland to be this far down the running order. Perhaps harsh, Barry, for this Sunderland win to be below public transport London TFL chat as well. But what a brilliant... I mean, look, both teams were really good, and it was a really good game. Tyler Adams' goal is brilliant, and, it could have been any result, I guess, but what a comeback from your lot.
Yeah, it was a really good win. The second game in a row that Sunderland's players have had to play in and Bournemouth's indeed, torrential rain from start to finish. Really entertaining spectacle. Sunderland gave away 2 cheap goals by gifting possession to Bournemouth. Tyler Adams was the pick of the game, obviously, spotting Robin Ruffs off his line and channeling his inner Kenny McLean to score just a brilliant goal to put Bournemouth 2 up. I didn't give Sunderland much of a chance of coming back, to be honest, but Granit Xhaka was excellent. Enzo Lefebvre is a brilliant player, a brilliant young player in Sunderland's midfield. Sunderland got back into it, went ahead, and then it got very, very bad-tempered towards the end. Bournemouth's players were getting very narky at having been pegged back and overtaken. And after the game, I thought I like Anthony Areola. I have to say, I'm a big fan of his. But he accused the ref afterwards of having lost control of the game. I would very much argue that Bournemouth's players lost control of the game, and indeed themselves, and that may have contributed to their defeat. But yeah, I am reminded of my constantly bleak prognosis last season, where I kept saying I didn't want Sunderland to get promoted because I didn't want them to have a Southampton or a Leicester of a season and just get beaten week in and week out. But what a great addition to the Premier League they have been with those players they've brought in, who have all hit the ground running.
Yeah, they were great. Xhaka was so once you were 3-2 up, he was excellent as well, wasn't he? I think on Iraola, Dan, it's a bit like EFL managers who just, when they lose, say, well, look, the opposition, they knock it long and they're very direct and there's nothing you can do to that. That sort of classic patronising. I feel sorry for the ref because it's really hard to ref in this atmosphere. You know, let's just, once you say you've lost control, it is just, come on. I mean, Lewis Cook did elbow a guy in the face. That is probably a red card, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say elbowing someone in the face is stereotypically a red card offence. I think Bournemouth got swept up in the kind of atmosphere and the raucousness, if that's a word, of the stadium of light, really. And in the end, they got chewed up and spat out. As soon as Sunderland got a goal back, they were just on it, weren't they? You just felt they were going to go on and get something out of this game. And Bournemouth have been kind of battered a few times recently, or lost games quite comfortably recently. So Iraola's a brilliant manager, and they got off to a brilliant start, but they're certainly struggling at the moment. Bournemouth, it's not like the feel good of the start of the season, and Iraola does seem a bit tetchy right now.
Only 5 promoted sides have ever had more points than Sunderland after 13 games. The best promoted side since Wigan 05-06.
And look what happened to them.
Yeah, exactly.
But they won the.
They have. I think they've got to go to Anfield midweek, then City at home, I think, and then Newcastle at home. So that's 3 big games coming up.
Yeah.
And then their
AFCON.
entire squad goes to AFCON.
Yeah, they're actually, Sunderland are actually in AFCON. They've got a good chance of winning AFCON, haven't they, Sunderland? A couple more games to get through. 3 more games, in fact, to get through. Brentford 3, Burnley 1. A game, Barney, which came alive after 80 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, Brentford they're a fascinating story, aren't they? I kind of, I've really enjoyed watching them this season. I love watching, Igor Thiago, who basically spent, I think, the best part of a year injured, and is now just showing how many sort of brilliant footballers there are out there waiting for a chance in this league. He's always made me think of Ivan Toney. He kind of is. If you put the words Ivan Toney through like a Slavic Portuguese translator app, you would get the words Igor Thiago. It's like is it? It's like they've made a new Ivan Toney. He's kind of a similar player as well. Like he's strong. He's really quick. He's a really good finisher, and I think he's going to end up with almost, at this rate, almost 20 goals in the Premier League, which is an amazing story for him. And he always does that celebration which says, "It's not me, it's God," which I hope he will bear in mind when the massive money transfer deal to move to Spurs or similar comes in at the end of the season. It's not you, it's God.
11 goals in 13, second behind Erling Haaland. You know, he's sort of one of a lot of Brazilian number 9s who all want to be number 9 at the World Cup. But I heard Tim Vickery saying, you know, Brazil, you know, there's a snobbishness about if you're playing for Brentford, that's not good enough for us.
But he hasn't actually played for Brazil yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But he's keen
He must
to.
be in the running.
Well, he needs to get ahead of Richarlison. That is your task. Should you choose to accept it, is to appear at least as good as Richarlison.
The snobs are happy with Richarlison, surprisingly.
Villa 1, Wolves 0. You were there, Dan. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was a harder game than I thought it was going to be at the start of the day. I think Wolves deserve some credit, and Rob Edwards deserves some credit for the way they set up.
Probably some points.
I mean, they need some points. Although I thought Wolves set up well and made it difficult for Villa and were perhaps unlucky not to score and go ahead, I did always feel that Villa would have enough to win the game. Villa seem to be having their own mini goal of the season competition going on at the moment. I think 57% of their goals have come from outside the box, which people keep saying isn't sustainable, but it keeps happening every single week.
So good, this one as well. It's like, how is it? It's a bit like Guardiola to jump that high from a standing start. There's no way to get that much power on that strike.
I mean, it's only his second Premier League goal for the club as well, Boubacar Kamara. They both come on his wrong foot. I suggest he should shoot on his wrong foot a little bit more. Villa are just so good at home. I think we've lost about 2 games in 60 at Villa Park in the league or something ridiculous. Like going to Villa Park is, I said Selhurst Park was a tough place to go. Villa Park's an even tougher place to go. And Unai Emery deserves a huge amount of credit because at the end of August, we couldn't even get a shot on target. And since the transfer window shut, I think we've only lost 1 Premier League game. So the fact that he's turned this round and got Villa to 4th on the 1st of December, I would never, ever have seen that coming at the end of August. He's just a tremendous football manager. We're so lucky to have him. Long may it continue. And yeah, brilliant. Always nice to beat Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Just on Villa Park being a difficult place to go,
Yeah.
I would say don't go to Witton. That's a mistake.
Right.
Get the number 17 bus, which goes directly from one of the New Street exits, and that will take you straight there around the back.
Is that good advice, Dan?
I mean, I have to take my dad, so getting on public transport is a complete no go for us at the moment. We have to park in a disabled bay, which is still quite a walk away from the ground, actually. But Barney is the Premier League travel man. Who am I to argue with his advice?
How would you get to the City Ground, Barney?
I would walk down over the river. It's lovely. Nottingham's a lovely city. Just enjoy being there. It's beautiful.
That's what Brighton did, and they won 2-0. 20 seconds of thoughts on this, Barry, with apologies to Brighton and Forest fans.
Well, I think it moves Brighton up to 4th, 5th, which is I had very high hopes from the start of the season. It looked like they were going to let me down, but they seem to have found their mojo. Carlos Baliba was dropped for this game. He had his head turned during the summer and it really hasn't been playing well this season. So Hertzler finally took the decision to drop him. 2 good goals, Maxim de Kuiper and that young Greek chap, Stefanos Simas. I think he scored his first goal for Brighton. It was a bit of a gift. That was one that was on a plate for him. He just had to roll the ball into an empty goal. I think Brighton probably would have got a penalty if he hadn't scored it anyway. And a good win for them and a very poor performance from Forest. And Sean Dyche wasn't particularly impressed with his side afterwards, I think.
Some excellent advantage from the referee. It reminds me of, I can't remember who it was. Who was the ref who did a great advantage and then ran off celebrating with his arms out like
Mike
this?
Dean. He was against my
Mike
team
Dean
as well.
Was it?
Tottenham
It's
Villa.
one of the best things you'll ever see. He runs off. He's running off like Tardelli, isn't he? It's absolutely sensational. Ed finally says, how many additions does Barney think Millwall will need in time for their opening day in the Premier League next season? 3rd in the Championship, an injury time winner over Southampton, Barney.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing because they're winning. Normally, it's a struggle. It's ugly. It's involves punting the ball forward towards Jake Cooper, but they're actually good, which is confusing, and know how to control games and have good players. Aziz is on a brilliant run at the moment. I mean, they're really good, and the Den is a powerful force. I think it would be really fun to see them in the Premier League. I imagine it would lead to. I don't know what would happen with the club. I've always felt it's on the verge of being sold to the the most evil oligarch that can be found. Somewhere they'll find him. They're scouring the planet for who have we got here? Is there anyone who's involved in arms and oil? Because you can now redevelop that site, and it's kind of a bit of London that someone could throw loads of money into and do stuff to, which I don't want them to do. There's a part of me that fears promotion from that respect. I quite like how things are, but yeah, they're really the goals were great as well. Really good goals.
When Villa were in the Championship, the Den was my favourite away ground due to the fact that it was the Dragon's Lair on Dream Team. Harchester United used to love going there for that reason alone.
Yeah, and London Bridge, and then sort of pretty straightforward from there, I would suggest.